Okay, now we're going to look at the median. I have to get a drink here. My throat's killing me. We're going to look at the median. If you drive like me, you've hit a few of these. The median means the middle, okay? Not that I really want you driving on the median, but the median, you've heard that before. The median is a little concrete thing in the middle of the road. It's right in the middle. So median means middle. So let's look at the median. Now remember, we've talked about, I told you that some of these segments deal with 90 degrees. Some of them deal with midpoints. The median is one that deals with midpoints. The median goes from the vertex to the midpoint of the opposite side. Vertex to the midpoint of the opposite side. So it says BG, not like the group, you know, staying alive. BG is a median. So what that tells me about BG is it tells me that G is a midpoint. That's what a median tells me. Whoops. Midpoint with an I. I can spell sometimes. Now here's where you have to be careful. A median does not cut an angle in half. That is an angle bisector. This nowhere says angle bisector. Some of you guys like to create fantasy pictures and congruences that don't exist. You can't mark something congruent and assume something is congruent just because it looks that way. You have to be provided information that it is congruent. Something has to tell you it's congruent. You either need to be told it is, or you need to have something in the picture that's clear that you can infer, like vertical angles, or reflexive property, or alternate interior because the lines are parallel. Those are things we can infer based on the picture. Here, we don't have anything. We just know it's a median. So do not mark these two angles congruent if it does not tell you it's an angle bisector. You cannot. So median just means midpoint, okay? So find the value of x if BG is 4x plus 10, okay? AG is 6x plus 4, and CG is 7x minus 5. Okay. We don't have anything right now that tells us anything about how to find the median. However, what can I use to find the median? X, right? Well, how can I find x? Well, since it's a median, it connects to a midpoint, which means what? About 6x plus 4 and 7x minus 5. You're right, they're equal. Good job. Way to answer. I wish I could give you extra credit. So 6x plus 4 equals 7x minus 5. So now I'm going to solve this for x. So my first step is going to be, I'm going to move the 6x over. So 4 equals x minus 5. Now I'm going to move the 5. So I'm going to add 5 here. So x equals 9. Okay, now, x is 9. Does this anywhere tell me to find the length of the median? No. Does this tell me to find the length of BG? No. This is what we call a distractor. They gave you 4x plus 10, and a lot of you think you have to use everything in the question. Well, we didn't, did we? We found x without having to use this. So you really didn't need that. All we needed to know is that this was a midpoint and it's a median, and we could have solved for x. So don't think that you have to use everything you always are given in a question. You have distractors that are put in there. All right, so now we've got 11. In the diagram, CJ, just like our assistant principal, CJ, Mr. Odo, CJ is a median, median meaning, again, magic word, midpoint of CAR, triangle car. Oh, how cute they can spell. Now, median means it goes from the vertex, remember? It goes from vertex to midpoint. Vertex to midpoint. These angles are not congruent. Don't mark them that way. Nothing tells you they are. If AJ is 18, that's this one. AJ is 18. Now I know these are the same. What's AR? Well, AR is the whole thing, right? So if AJ is 18, sorry, I have to keep adjusting the picture here. It's like I'm moving a Ouija board. So AR is the whole thing. If that's 18, the whole thing has to be 36 because that means that's 18 as well. So this is 36. It's 2 times all the way across. If AR is 64, so now let's say AR all the way across is 64, and JR, which is halfway, is 4 times x plus 5, find x. Well, AR is the whole thing, right? The whole thing, 64, is going to equal twice JR. Okay? So 4 times x plus 5, and we're going to double that. 2 times this equals this. Okay? If you're a Dallas fan, I don't even remember who shot JR. It doesn't matter. I just said that because this says JR and I'm a little delirious right now. So 64 equals, let's do the parentheses on the inside. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times 5 is 20. So I broke up the first set of parentheses. Oh, I'm sorry, I broke them up. Then I'm going to keep moving. For my next step, I'm going to distribute again. So 64 equals 8x plus 40. I distributed. I'm going to write this over here. And so now I'm going to move the 40 over with the 64 to get the 8x by itself. And I got 8x equals 24. So for my last step, I'm going to divide both sides by 8. So x equals 3. So 64 is the whole side. JR is just this part. And because this is a median, it's a midpoint, so JR is actually 1/2 of the whole thing, or the whole thing is equal to twice what JR is. Okay? So let's look at number 12. Let's look at the last one. In the diagram, DE is a median. That means we're going to go vertex to midpoint. That means I can mark this as a midpoint. Whoops. DE is a median of right triangle ABC. Right, it does tell you it's a right triangle, so I do have a 90-degree angle. If EC is 12 and DC is 10, find AD. That's this one. Okay, so we're going to apply some right triangle logic here. Well, first of all, if that's 12, what's this? 12. So what's the whole side going to be? 24, right? Now, if I've got a right triangle, I have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I'm going to do 10 squared plus 24 squared equals c squared. Okay. So 10 squared is 100. 24 squared is 576 equals c squared. So I've got 676 equals c squared. Okay, so you're going to do what to both sides now? What are you going to do to both sides when you have c squared? I don't want c squared. I want c. Okay, so I'm going to take the square root of both sides, and that's just going to give me c, and you come out with 26. So AD would be 26. That's using the Pythagorean theorem. 10 squared plus 24 squared equals c squared. So for the last one, if AE, now we're going to use a different color here, if AE is equal to 3x and AC is equal to 5x plus 12, Find x. Well, what do you know? Since it's a median, you know E is a midpoint, right? So you know that AE is going to be 1/2 of this, or the 5x plus 12 is going to equal twice AE. This is double this one. So 5x plus 12 equals 6x. I'm kind of moving fast. I want to subtract 5x from both sides. So 12 equals x. So there's your first part, 12. The next one says, find the length of AC. Well, what is AC? It's 5x plus 12. So what am I going to do? I'm going to take this 12, that's x, and plug it in. So 5 times x, which is 12, plus 12, equals 5 times 12 is 60, plus 12 is 72. And that's the length of AC. And that is how you apply the median.